4 travel companions have discovered the plans of an undead necromancer to attack the Kingdom of Teniras with hordes of undead as well as the demonic forces of Havoc. The group of heroes are now captured in his castle and can only watch as his evil plan unfolds. The necromancer's first goal is to perform blood rituals in sacred places around Teniras. But there are still forces in Teniras who can fight back. But the question is, will they be prepared for what's coming? The Necromancer has sent a patrol with a War Master and 4 Gore warriors to perform a blood ritual on a sacred altar. The War Master is armed with great weapon and he has a blood icon that gives him and all other units within 12 inches 1 extra attack when charging. 1 Gore warrior has a great weapon and the other 3 have dual hand weapons. They all have frenzy, which gives them 2 extra attacks when they charge. And in reserve to perform ambush, they have 2 succubus demons with flying demon swords and also the ambush ability. But they have to be stopped, and to do that, the Guardians of Teniras, the Eternal Wardens, have a nearby patrol, and they are determined to protect the altar. They are led by a Guardian elite. He's fearless and he's armed with a halberd. Then 2 Wardens armed with hand weapons and a tough value of 3, and then a group of Guardians with spears. And in reserve, a winged Warden with a tough value of 3, fearless, flying, furious, and ambush, so he will also be kept in reserve. He is armed with dual hand weapons. The forces will deploy opposite each other on the battlefield with the Eternal Wardens in Player A section and the Havoc forces in Section B. This is a King of the Hill mission, so whoever controls the objective here, the altar in the middle of the battlefield at the end of turn 4, will be the winner. The 2 small groups of trees on the battlefield here in the lower left and also in the upper right corner will be difficult terrain. And the forces of Havoc have deployed like this on the right side of the battlefield. They are relatively close to the altar and they might reach it already in the first round if they rush towards it. And on the opposite side, the Eternal Wardens that have divided themselves into 3 groups with the Guardian Elite here on the top of the battlefield. And this is a close combat battle. None of the units have ranged weapons. So let's roll off. Red dice for the Havoc warriors and black dice for the Eternal Wardens. And a 6 and a 4 for the Eternal Wardens, and that means the War Warriors will begin round number 1. The first Gore warrior activates and rushes directly towards the altar. So already now the altar objective is captured by the Havoc forces. The group of Guardians move closer to the altar as well. They keep out of charging range from some of the stronger enemy units. The War Master with his blood icon also moves closer to the central part of the battlefield. One of the Wardens move not through but around the trees here and takes position behind this rock. Then the next Gore warrior also moves closer. So they try to position themselves for charges in the next round. They cannot really reach each other in this first round. The same goes for this Warden. He takes cover behind the fallen tree. And then this Gore warrior also takes cover behind a tree. He is now close to the altar and also close to the group of Guardians. And then it's the Guardian Elite who activates. He cannot reach anybody with a charge, but he can move closer. and might be able to do some damage in the next round. And finally, this warrior, he is the one with the great weapon. He also moves closer. And that was the final activation of round number 1. And this first round was all about movement and strategic position. No battle whatsoever. But I bet there will be battle in the next round. The Havoc warriors control the objective, and now we will see if any of the sides will deploy their ambush forces. So let's roll off. A 4 for the warriors and a 5 for the Eternal Wardens. So they will be able to position their ambush units first. And the Winged Warden shows up here behind the warriors, 9 inches away from the nearest unit. And on the other side of the battlefield, the 2 succubus demons also show up 9 inches away from the closest Eternal Wardens. Now let's go to round number 2. And the Eternal Wardens will activate first, because they finished first. And the Winged Warden immediately flies in, and he attacks 2 warriors with his dual hand weapons. 5 attacks because he is furious, and that means 3 attacks against the warrior with the great weapon. He's hitting on 4s, and 2 attacks against the other warrior. So that's 1 hit against the warrior with the hand weapons and 2 hits against the warrior with the great weapon. They will both need 5s to defend. So 1 is good, and the other one will just roll again here. And that was a failed defense roll. So he blocks 1 of the attacks, and the other rolls a 1. So each of the warriors are hit once by the Winged Warden, and that means they go down and will have to roll on the wound chart. So let's see the one with the great weapon first. He'll have his wound here, and then the roll on the wound chart. And it's a 6, so he is blown away by the Winged Warden. And the other one, let's see, and a 2, so he is stunned. So one of them taken out, and the other one still on the battlefield, but stunned. What an effective ambush attack. And then he backs off 1 inch. Now the warrior closest to the Guardian Elite charges against him. He has a dual hand weapon with 2 attacks. But because he has the Frenzy ability, he will have 2 extra attacks. And then 1 extra because he is within 12 inches of the blood icon. 5 attacks hitting on 3s. And they all hit. 5 devastating attacks with AP 1 against the Guardian Elite. And he will have to defend on 5s. That will be difficult. But let's see. 5 rolls, and he misses every single one. He is struck 5 times by the weapon of the warrior. And that, even though he has a tough value of 3, immediately brings him to his knees. And he will have to roll on the wound chart now. And with a 6, the leader of the Eternal Wardens is taken out with a bang. And that immediately calls for a response here. The Warden charges into the back of the War Master. He has 2 attacks with hand weapons, but 1 extra because he's furious, and he hits on 4s. So only 1 hit. It's an AP 1 weapon, so the War Master can defend on a 4. And he doesn't. So 1 hit out of the 3 he has. But now he can fight back. He can fight back with his great weapon, 3 attacks, hitting on 3s. And only 1 of them is able to hit the Warden, but it's AP 3, so the Warden will need a 6 to avoid being hit here, and he can't. So 1 wound to each of the fighting units, and the Warden will back off 1 inch. And now one of the beautiful but deadly succubus demons fly towards the group of guardians. And she will have to make a dangerous terrain roll first because they have spears. And she passes that one. So now she's able to make 2 attacks against a group of guardians hitting on 4s. 1 attack hit, and it's an AP1 weapon, so they will defend on 5s, which they don't, so 1 model will leave the unit immediately. The 2 remaining guardians turn around and they fight back with their spears. They have 2 attacks hitting on 4s. And as far as I can see, 1 failed and 1 attack is good. It's an AP1 weapon, so the succubus demon will need a 6. And she fails, so she goes down with 1 wound. And she is stunned, potentially knocked out. And that's exactly what happens. She is knocked out of the battle. A fatal attack. The second warden decides to charge against the warrior here close to the altar. So he will now contest the objective, and he will hit with 3 attacks on 4s. So 2 hits, and the warrior will have to defend on 5s. He fails both of them. It was close, but not enough. So 2 wounds, and he has to make a roll on the wound chart as well. And with a roll of 6, this battle is turning more and more bloody. He also is knocked out of the battle, so the wardens have now captured the objective. The War Master now activates. He has already fought and is fatigued, but anyway he charges past the altar and the warden into the group of the 2 remaining guardians. He has 3 attacks with his great weapon, 1 extra because he's furious and 1 extra because of the blood icon. But he will need 6s to hit, and he gets 2 6s. 2 hits with his great weapon, and it's AP3, so the guardians will need 6s as well to block. And they don't. So 1 of them is immediately removed, and the other one goes down with 1 wound and a roll on the wound chart. Let's see if he can stay on the battlefield as stunned. And with a roll of 3, he is stunned. And immediately after, the remaining guardian activates and gets back on his feet, but he can't do anything else. And the same happens to this warrior who was taken down by the winged warden. He also gets back on his feet. The final activation of round 2 is the succubus demon attacking the guardian. And again, a dangerous terrain test. With a 1, she would have taken a hit, but she passes. And now she has 3 attacks because of the blood icon. And she needs 4s to hit, so only 1 attack hit the target. But the guardian fails to defend, and he goes down again. And now with 2 wounds instead of 1. That will make the roll on the wound chart even more difficult. And with a 6, there is no doubt the final remaining guardian is slain by the succubus demon. So from a quiet first round to a round 2 of close combat carnage here. The Eternal Wardens control the objective, and both squads have suffered casualties. None of the squads are below half strength though, so no morale checks will be needed at the end here of round 2. Let's go to round number 3. And the Eternal Wardens will once again activate first. So the Winged Warden here charges in to finish his job from the previous round. So several hard-hitting attacks, 5 of them coming in here hitting on 4s, but 4 of them fail to do anything. Only 1 attack hits the target. And with a roll of 5, the warrior will defend the attack. So now it's time to fight back. 2 attacks hitting on 3s. So 1 hit against the Winged Warden, who will defend on a 5, and he fails. So 1 wound to the Winged Warden, and he will back off 1 inch. And now the War-Gore warrior who completely obliterated the Guardian leader in the last round charges in against the Warden at the altar. And because of Frenzy and the Blood Icon, it's 5 attacks hitting on 3s. 3 of them are good here, and it's AP 1. So the Warden will have to roll a 5 to defend these 3 hits. And he rolls a pretty good roll here. He only fails to block 1 of the attacks, so he is hit once and he will take 1 wound. But he will be able to fight back. 2 attacks, hitting on 4s. And he makes 1 of them. And now the warrior will have to defend on a roll of 5. And he fails, so he will get 1 wound back. Unfortunately for him, he does not have a tough value of 3, so he will go down and he will make a roll on the wound chart. And it's a 6, so a completely failed charge here. He goes down himself and is removed from the battle. The carnage continues. The other Warden here, who is already wounded, charges into the War Master. So he will have a total of 3 attacks hitting on 4s because of his furious ability. So 2 hits against the War Master. The War Master is also wounded and he will have to roll 5s to defend. And he fails both defense rolls here, so 2 more wounds to the War Master, and that is enough to take him down with a total of 3 wounds. Now he will have to make a roll on the wound chart. And he rolls a 6, unbelievable. He is also taken out, knocked out by the Warden here. What will come next? The warrior here activates. He has already fought with the Winged Warden, so he is fatigued, but he decides anyway to charge towards the altar and into the Warden here. And he makes 4 hits, and since he is fatigued, he will need a 6 to hit, and he fails all of his attacks. But the Warden will be able to fight back, and he rolls 2 6s. He was also fatigued, but he doesn't seem to care. 2 hits. And the warrior blocks 1 of them, but another one wounds him, so he is now going down with 2 wounds. And the roll on the wound chart is a 4, so that is just exactly enough to remove him from this battle. So now the Warden here, who has been attacked twice, activates, and he only moves closer to the altar, and he cannot really do anything else. So the final demon to activate is the remaining succubus. She attacks the Warden with 2 strikes from her demon sword. She will need 4s, and that means 2 hits. And it's AP 1, so the Warden will need a roll of 5. So he makes 1 of them, and he receives his 2nd wound. But he can now fight back. He will need a 4, so he hits once, and it's AP 1, so the succubus demon will have to roll a 6. Close, but not enough. So she goes down with 1 wound, and this could be the end of this battle. Not quite yet. She managed to only remain stunned. But she is the only remaining unit from the Havoc forces, so they are way below half strength, and since she's stunned, she will automatically fail the morale test and be removed from the battle. And so it is A huge victory for the Eternal Wardens. They control the objective, and they have eliminated all the enemy forces of the evil Necromancer. The Guardians of Teniras has certainly proven themselves worthy. Thanks a lot for watching this battle report. I hope you'll join me for future bad reps.